Hey, Truth Seekers. Today is November 11th, once known as Armistice Day, now known as Veterans Day. It was originally made to celebrate the end of World War I, which concluded on November 11th at the 11th hour, 11 11 11, like KKK, like 33. Kurt Vonnegut Jr., his most famous, he's a famous American author if you don't know. He passed away in 2007. We're going to get into that. His most famous book is Slaughterhouse Five, which has to do with World War II, which he was in. But let's just look at his name gematria. And before we get into Kurt Vonnegut, what I want you guys to know is he's my favorite author. I own all of Kurt Vonnegut's books. I've read all of Kurt Vonnegut's books. I used to not read. Twice in college, I had two separate English professors say I reminded them of Kurt Vonnegut. After the second time, I picked up one of his books, and I thought, wow, it's weird that I reminded them of this man because he was a great writer. He really interests me. I liked him. I don't think I remind myself of Kurt Vonnegut, but for whatever reason, I reminded two professors, and that's how I learned about Kurt Vonnegut, through them. So anyhow, now I know gematria. Now things are a little bit more interesting. The name Kurt Vonnegut Jr. has a gematria of 113. He was born, as we said, November 11th in the year 22. That date has a gematria of 44, like the word kill. And unfortunately, he died at the age of 84 on April 11th, 4/11, 2007. JFK was once assassinated from 411 Elm Street. There's so many examples on my blog, you guys, of just deaths having to do with 114 and 411 and 44, from presidents to scientists to celebrities. It's astounding. Even Kurt Vonnegut Jr. now becomes part of it when you look at it. So he has this 44 numerology of birth, and then he dies on 411. These numbers associated with death. And then the age of 84 is also curious because United States of America sums to 84. Kurt Vonnegut was born to a wealthy scientist who worked for General Electric, which was an even bigger company than it is today back then. General Electric's always been huge. Vonnegut, the author, also worked for General Electric briefly. His claim to fame is that he lived through the bombing of Dresden. And if you don't know what the bombing of Dresden is, that is the most deadly event in World War II, even more deadly than what's reported at Hiroshima, Nagasaki, fire bombings of Japan, all of it. And it was completely needless because what Dresden was during World War II was the refuge city. It's where people went who weren't participating in the war for safety. And the reason that was safety is because that was the cultural arts town, one of the oldest cities in Germany. And this was near the end of the war, and they needlessly bombed it and killed a lot of people. And if you look up the official stats, you'll see that there were 722 Royal Air Force involved in this bombing. Yes, this bombing was done by the British and the U.S. and the Allied forces, as they were referred to on our side of the river. 722. Where have we seen that number before? It's like 227 passengers from the Malaysian plane. It's like 227 passengers from Pan Am. It's like Flight 227. The reason they use that number, you guys, is because 22 divided by 7 gives you the number for pi, which has to do with circles and cycles. And the madmen who run this world, from the wars to much more, are all about doing things in circles and cycles. And they seem to do them by numerology and astrology, which makes sense because they have natural cycles. So anyway, Dresden, where the bombing took place, sums to 33. It's in Saxony. Saxony has the gematria of 26. Remember the God number? If you sum those the 722 Royal Air Force plus the 527 reported U.S. force, it sums to 1249. A little bit interesting. I just looked up this little tidbit. In 1953, the U.S. put out a statement defending the bombing of Dresden because it saved 110 factories and as many as 50,000 lives. Now, how bombing a refuge town achieve that is unclear, but that's the information they put out. And why I find that interesting is because I just realized how in this 110th World Series, the number 53 was coded into it so hard. And here it is, back in time, also pertaining to this. So this is part of the mystery that I still don't understand, you guys. I see a lot of these patterns and I'm able to connect them, but I still think they have deeper meaning, and that's why they show up with the same pairings over and over again. It's some sort of alternate language that has meaning that I haven't fully decoded. So that's where I need your guys' help too. You guys are welcome to take your stab at this and provide your feedback. Your knowledge is very helpful. But anyway, you guys, I want to call attention to this. You know, it was reported that Kurt Vonnegut died naturally. The cause of death was that he fell and hit his head very hard. I've heard, even if you go and do a Google search right now for how he died, you'll find the two different stories I've found. One is that he fell off a ladder, and you'd have to wonder why he'd be on a ladder. He was on Jon Stewart's Daily Show not long before he died, and he even admitted how much trouble he was having walking around at that point. So why would he be on a ladder? The other one is that he fell really hard in the shower, which is more believable and does happen. I know elderly people do fall and die. But you look at the dates, you look at the patterns, you look at what's happened to many other people in this world in positions such as Kurt Vonnegut, authors, scientists, movie stars, and more. Same patterns, same numbers. So I suspect Kurt, R.I.P., is another victim of this. And it's really sad and unfortunate. All right, until next time, Truth Seekers. Encore. One more important point. Kurt Vonnegut, who was born today, today's also Veterans Day, once known as Armistice Day, he was very outspoken about this subject. He thought Armistice Day was a very sacred and important holiday because it was about remembering the importance of peace and there not being war. He didn't like Veterans Day, the change from Armistice Day to Veterans Day, because he saw that more of a celebration of troops, and he saw how in our society this celebration of troops was also used in the militarization of our society, which is so true. And that's part of the reason I always really liked Kurt Vonnegut Jr. So even if somehow he was a part of this whole thing, I really feel like his voice was a good one, and he brought a lot of truth into this world. So Kurt Vonnegut, you are missed. Thank you, buddy. All right, until next time.